Welcome to the Tea Grannies. I'm Elise.
And I'm Maria. Today we're here to talk about where to start when you want to get published. This episode will focus on preparing what you need for traditional publishing. So pour yourself a cup of tea and let's get started.
Disclaimer, neither of us are traditionally published yet, but we've been through this process before, so we are, arrogantly, confidently telling you that, we know a few things. So
It's pretty qualified.
So if you're in a position where you've completed your manuscript, it's a whole draft, you've edited your manuscript, you've been through rounds of feedback and all that stuff, that's all well and good. But then you want to get published. You want people to read the thing that you wrote beyond just your friends and family who tell you, oh, it's great. And that's another monster altogether. So we know how hard it is to know where to start because we've tried that too. So this episode is basically just about tips and tricks, things that, once you know them, it makes that whole getting out of the gate at the start of the race so much easier. So that's the goal. We just want to share some knowledge that made this process actually doable rather than sitting there thinking, I don't know the first thing about getting published, which is where I was a few years ago before I attended the writer's studio with Maria. So I remember having multiple conversations with people before we did TWS that, yes, I'm a writer. Yes, I've written a book or multiple drafts of multiple things. Yes, I want to get published. No, I have no idea how to do that or where to start doing that or what to look up to even find out what to do that. And do you just call up a publisher and say, hey, I wrote a book. You want to read it?
Please do not do this. Don't do this.
I mean, you probably won't get through, but
you probably won't. Or they'll be like, can we redirect you to do this properly if they're really polite?
If they're
maybe
nice.
A Canadian publisher might do that for you. But publishers don't take unsolicited manuscripts, maybe in very rare occasions, but I've never seen it. You'll need to approach a literary agent first. And if they like your work, they will represent you to the publishers and try and get you a book deal. So agents are incredibly important in traditional publishing. Mm-hmm. So they know the industry and it's in their best interest to get you the best deal because they work on commission. So they don't make money unless they make you money. And they will protect you from bad situations. Ideally, I'm sure there's some agent horror stories out there that we just haven't heard yet, but we're going to go with they're going to protect you.
We'll get there when we get there. Currently the most that I know about agents is what I read online because, finding an agent. Other podcasts, or I guess conferences too, where you get to hear their wisdom from their own face, which is nice.
Yes.
I find most agents by doing one of two things, either doing a general Google search for agents who rep my genre, or, and I find this is even better, but quite time consuming, so I don't do it often, but cracking open some of my favorite recent books in those genres that I write in or related genres and looking to the acknowledgements page to find out who that writer's agent was. Because chances are, if I write in the same genre, that agent will be a good fit for me. And I've read something that they've worked on, so that's, bonus point. You can stick that in the query letter and get some brownie points, and that's always a good thing. Unless on the off chance that the agent actually hates the work that they represent, but that doesn't happen because they're flooded and they only take works that they like. So,
Yes.
Let's just get rid of that terror for now. But some other ways that I do use to find them are through Writer's Digest posts or interviews or lists and stuff. And that comes through in the Google search. Those are usually some of the first things that pop up. Or I'll look up some literary agencies and comb through the agent's page on their website to see if any of them are a good fit, and I bookmark them. If they're not open to queries, then I bookmark them to save them for later. And then Publishers Marketplace is another popular one. Some of it is locked behind a paywall, so it's not always as useful as I wish it was, but there are certain parts that you can access for free, and then if you find it valuable enough, it might be worth paying for it. And you can sign up for the Writer's Digest newsletters as well, and they send, I think, regular updates about literary agents who are looking for books, so They also send all sorts of tips and tricks out anyways, and that can be a really valuable resource. But then once I've researched all these different things and collected all these names and bookmarked them and made sure that they're actually a good fit, then I make a massive, central list, a general list, and track them that way. I use a site called Query Tracker and go through the list that I've bookmarked in more detail when I'm actually ready to query them. But that's how I keep track, and I've found that to be the most useful.
Yeah, I found Query Tracker to be the most useful part. So I usually set like a broad search criteria, just basically sticking to my genre and then searching and kind of just rolling with it. And then I look up each agent, or I look up sometimes there's multiple agents at an agency. So I'll look up the agency and then I'll kind of cruise through those agents and pick the one that's the best fit. Because you can only query one agent per agency. Sometimes they'll share it around, or after they've rejected you, you can query someone else at that agency. But it really depends on the agency, and you've got to look up those rules before you go ahead and do those things. But anyway, so I also spent a lot of time going through the manuscript wishlist site. And this is a bit time consuming too. And I went through and read all their bios and their wish lists. And then I go on Query Tracker and add them to my query list. And so just a note about the Query Tracker site. There's a free and a paid option. So I have the paid option right now. It's $25 US per year. And you can query agents directly through the site. You don't need the paid option for that. It does help you track your queries, and then you can record your rejections and why, and it'll show like what date you queried, all this kind of stuff. But it is pretty helpful, and I love lists. Obviously, everyone should know that about me by now. And so I do enjoy the Query Tracker for that feature.
So you've made the list. If you're a list person, you like making lists, this will help you. But now that you have the list, you actually have to do something with it. And that's the hard part. That's where the work comes in. Here we go. Yeah. So if you are going to query an agent, they seem like a good fit. You want to get their attention for your book. What do you need to get started? This was a really big research portion before I ever queried for the first time. So I think maybe the most helpful is to go through the things that you'll definitely need to have in order to step into this next part of the whole publishing journey. You're going to need a completed draft of your book. And this is for fiction authors. For nonfiction, it's a bit different. That's not our expertise, so I'm not going to go into detail on that. If you are a fiction author, you need a completed draft. No half done, no I've mostly got it done, I just haven't written the ending yet. None of that. They want it to be done, and if it's not done, that's a marker for rejection, which would really suck. So just finish it first. Because, agents won't want a partially finished manuscript unless you're a nonfiction writer with an appealing following. Essentially, that's kind of the bare bones, as simple as it gets. So you want that completed draft. You also want your list that we've talked about of agents who represent your genre and are open to queries, because if they're not open to queries and you send them a query, they'll never read your query, and it'll just put a bad mark on your name, and,
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Really don't do that. And I recommend having a pretty big list before even starting to send things out, so that you're not having to scramble to find them every couple days, or you get through your list really fast and then you've run out of energy to try and find more. Right? So I recommend having a big list, and then several bottles of wine. Trust me on that one. and a thick skin. So that one's really important, and I think it's fairly self-explanatory, but you have all these things, hopefully, because then you have to send something to these agents who you don't know, and they're supposed to represent your work, potentially, and tell you that they love it. And if you just shoot off an email with a Word doc attached and say, here's my book, read and weep, you're probably going to get ghosted.
Also, don't do that. We're going to get to that.
So also don't do that. But yeah, we'll get into a few more basics before we actually talk about, okay, what do you put in the query letter? What do you actually tell these strange people who are supposed to get you into the Mount Olympus of publishing or whatever. So
Yeah. So I would say things that you should definitely have, all of the things that Elise listed, and a sense of humor. So you don't want to be crying every time you get a rejection. So try and put yourself in a good mental place when you're doing this.
grab that bottle of wine.
Yeah,
maybe two.
Whatever helps. And you also need to have attention to detail. I know we all just love that expression. It reminds me of like when you're writing resumes, you're like, I have a great attention to detail, and you like never forget to do up the fly on your pants. Like it's fine, but like in this case, you really want to make sure that you're thinking about it. And you need, this is a funny one that people also forget, a professional sounding email specifically for writing related things. So this will help your sanity, having a separate inbox for the rejections. So you're not jumping every time you get like an invoice to your email, you know, or like junk mail. You're like, okay, this is specifically for my writing things. And it also looks a lot better to be like, you know, elisevolkman@gmail.com instead of like hubbabubba69@gmail.com. Like, treat it a little like you're going for job interviews, because that's kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you will also need a query letter, a synopsis, and an elevator pitch, and the wine. Don't forget the wine.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when it comes to the attention to details, make sure that you're not rushing through your queries. Yeah. So you want to make sure you get the right name, you're spelling their names correctly, right emails, right agency, that kind of stuff. It's very easy when you're doing a lot of queries and you start to get a little fatigued and you're like, oh, I'm just going to copy and paste this one. Careful.
Don't do it.
Yeah. And if you're still not sure what you're going to need for a query, a very easy thing you can do is go on Query Tracker and pick a couple agents and look at their submission form. You don't have to actually fill it in, just look at it, look at the sections, and then you can get an idea of what you need. Yeah. So you'll obviously have to have your draft ready to go. And most of the queries I've had to send, they've asked for like the first 5 to 30 pages of my work.
Yeah.
So you got to be kind of ready, have that prepped in like its own Word doc by itself, so you're ready to go. And yeah, that's a taster of all the things you're going to need.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to get into how to write that query letter.
Yay. I was going to say, though, with the 5 to 30 pages of your work, so when I query, because that's typically, those are the kind of the breakdowns. So I have a few different documents saved up just to be prepared. So I have
do as well, yeah.
my 5-page sample, my 10-page sample, and my 30-page sample, and then like every once in a while a 50-page sample if they ask for a partial read or something. So
have it all ready to go and edited. Do not send it with spelling mistakes, formatting errors. Just don't.
Yeah. So
those are important.
It'll help you in the long run to be prepared.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But we talk about all these good things. How do you actually write a query letter? How many times have I asked that question over and over and over again?
I ask it when I'm writing my query letters.
Every time?
Every time.
How do you revise a query letter? Oh.
Yeah.
So the probably most succinct, concise advice I have heard was from an agent at the Surrey International Writers Conference. I believe his name is Eric Smith. And
he's the best.
He's so he's lovely. Yeah. Check out his Twitter. He's hilarious. But his biggest piece of advice, or kind of step by step, if you can call it that, for writing a query letter, was 3 words: hook, book, and cook. So essentially, that's the hook is what's going to draw that agent in about your story. What's going to make them want to read it, just from mystery, context, whatever it is you choose to throw in there. The book, obviously, a little bit about what you've written, and then the cook, that's you, is a little bit about yourself. So the basics of what you want to include within those 3 parameters, when we're talking about the hook book section, it gets a little bit blurry about which comes first. It depends on kind of how you approach it and what your story is about. But in there, you definitely need to have the title of your story. That might be a no-brainer, but let's start there. Maybe don't go with a working title or still unnamed. No, think of a title.
Yeah, just name it. Just name it. It's got to have a name.
Eventually it might change in the publishing process, but whatever. Just give it a name. It'll serve you in the long run. So title, and then you want your word count in there. How long is it? Because that's going to be important. Your genre. because they want to know if they actually read what you're sending to them. Something that a lot of agents really like is comparative titles. So books that have come out recently that your work is kind of similar to or in the same vein as. It doesn't mean that the story follows all these plot points and it's like Hunger Games versus Divergent. Like, not, it doesn't have to be that similar, but stories with elements or specific themes or things that are just comparative to what you've written or that have inspired you in the past and those kinds of things. I'm 100% certain that one of the partial read requests I got from an agent was because I put a specific comp title in that she had loved or worked on or something.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah. Like that.
So it works. It's important. Don't just brush it off. Then, I guess the last thing for the book section is the actual, like, the 2 paragraphs. You want 2 shorter paragraphs about the story. But it's really important that you don't give the ending away. Don't give the story away. You're not giving them a synopsis in this section. You're not giving them a summary of the whole thing. You're trying to hook them. You want them to want to read the book just like you would any reader. So think back cover copy. What a reader picks up in a bookstore and looks at on the back of your book. That's what you're writing. And you don't want to have a bunch of spoilers in there, but you do want to keep them interested, keep them coming back for more. You're trying to hook them. And then the last piece is a short paragraph about yourself. And I want to emphasize the word short again, and then emphasize what you put into this section is, if you're writing things about yourself, make sure it's as relevant as possible. So that means writing related, if possible. If you don't have a following, if you haven't been published and all those things, that makes it a little bit tough. But you can put in, like, if you've taken a course on creative writing, that could go in there. Or if you have been in a writing group at all, that can go in there. If you help run a writing group, if you've been a guest on a podcast, or if you've done anything semi-public related to writing to show that you're invested in it, that could go in there. And, like, not everything you've ever done. Like I said, this is a short paragraph. It's not about you as much as it's about the book, but they do want to know a little bit about you to establish kind of like whether it's a good fit or not. Just like finding an editor is like finding a date, finding an agent is like finding a date. It's the same kind of thing.
Very similar.
Yeah, you need to talk about yourself, but you need to be confident and not arrogant. You need to be informative, but not overwhelming. You don't want to info dump them.
Speaking of arrogance, this is not the place to go on a monologue about how your book is the next great thing. So agents will not care. You will look like an asshole. So don't do that. They want to know about your book, a little bit about you, and that's how they're going to make the decision. If they even want to request pages from you, or they'll read your pages and then they'll decide. There's nothing like going on about how your book is so great, and then they look at your first 5 pages and you prove yourself wrong. So, just don't do that. So we've been to a few conferences, and agents have kind of emphasized how many query letters they get that are sort of like a weird braggy letter that doesn't do anything to sell the project to them. They even said it makes people look like idiots. So also bear in mind that agents who are open to queries get somewhere between 50 and 200 queries a day. So you are one in the sea of many, which might make you think you need to sell it a little extra hard, but don't. Every agent we've ever listened to at a conference or spoken to has emphasized how much they prefer the steps being followed properly.
Yeah. And as I know it's not the same, but as an editor, like I can appreciate that a lot because what I have on my website, this is how I want your work formatted and this is how I want it to look. Or when I send someone an email saying, okay, next step is to send me your manuscript and here's how I would like it. And then they don't do that and they send me every chapter in a separate email or...
Oh, that is a no. Nope.
So please follow the rules. They're not there just to annoy you. They're not there just to make your life difficult. I promise. I didn't think about it too hard before I started editing professionally, But ever since I've started, like just even a minor formatting thing that you don't follow makes the project take that much longer.
Yes.
Because then I have to go in and I have to edit the formatting myself, maybe, if that's how I work. Or I go in and I'm distracted by it all along, and it's just an extra annoyance that makes the person quicker to say no when they're already, like, they're flooded with requests and they're looking for reasons to say no. That's the only way they can do their job. So don't do that to yourself, essentially, is what I'm saying. Don't make it harder on yourself because you didn't follow one rule. Like, consistency is really important. You can stand out with your writing. That's the part that they care about. That's the part that they want to see you stand out in. But you don't need to stand out in your formatting because you're not a designer. And designing the look of the book is not your job. Yeah, so I just wanted to like throw that in there a little bit.
Yeah, you want to be prepared because it makes them know that you're serious about it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing that I think people forget, that like if you roll in there with a badly written query letter that no one's looked at, spelling mistakes, they're going to go, well, you're obviously not that serious about this, or you're not willing to put in the work. And so why would they want to take on a client who they already can tell right from the query letter that you're going to be incredibly difficult to deal with?
Yep.
They don't want to do that.
If you're not willing to follow the rules, it's like, okay, then are you not going to like respond to anything that I ask you to do? Are you not going to do anything I want you to do? And things that you have to do in order to get published? Like you're setting yourself up, and you need to not set yourself up to fail.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like going on a date, and you need to date, like, don't do something stupid that's going to just bite you in the ass later. So,
red flags.
Yeah. I think we've hammered that home. We can move on. But I think it's really important to emphasize because, like, when you're grinding through those query letters and trying to get them all out, it gets exhausting. It is fair to say it's exhausting. It's a lot of work, especially if you're doing it well and not just copy and pasting to the next guy. And it can start to feel like, why am I doing this? Why do I have to follow all these stupid rules and they're different for everybody and yada, yada, yada. But don't shortcut it. Don't shortcut it. So, yeah. And that applies to the query letter. That also applies to the next item on our list of things that you need. Not every agent will ask for this one, but several of them will. Many of them will. And eventually you'll need one. Even if the agent doesn't want one, you'll need it later down the road. Your synopsis. So, this is the summary of your entire book. This gives away the ending. It doesn't go into every little nitty-gritty detail of your story, but it just kind of sets up the main flow of the story from start to finish. And if an agent is asking for a synopsis, they'll typically give a couple, like one or two guidelines if they want something different than usual, if they don't want you to give away the ending, whatever. Make sure you look up the rules for the individual agent and how they want your synopsis done and whether there's a word count and everything. But I'm just going to go through you the order of attack, the kind of different things that you want to include in there and make sure you have. And then Maria will go through some of the more nuanced details after that. But yeah, writing a synopsis, you're setting yourself up for a summary of your book. And this gives away more than the back cover copy would. So I was on a website. It's the website for Janet Reed. She's a literary agent. If you want to look it up, it's jetreedliterary.blogspot.com. We'll leave the link in our episode notes like usual. She's quite well known, I think, for critiquing query letters, and she is a literary agent, so I would say she knows what she's talking about. So she had kind of a little write-up on how to do a synopsis, and I thought it was very helpful because I have struggled much over the years.
They're not as easy as they sound.
No, they're just as bad, if not worse, than writing a query letter for me. Yeah. They're brutal. So, not to scare you off. But if you have kind of a gameplay, they're doable, I promise. I've done a couple. It's worked out. It's okay. So, order of attack. This is what I was actually trying to say. You want to start in your first couple lines with the setup of the story. Where do we begin? And then you want your inciting incident and the goal of the story to come in next. You don't need to go into all the details of this main character is related to this person and they have this best friend over here and that best friend down there and they own 3 cats and they love their dog and they want to be an astronaut. Like, You don't need all those things unless they're completely relevant to the storyline. You just need a basic setup of who's in the story, like who's driving the story, where are they, what's the kind of climate of the system they live in, and then inciting incident and goal. What happened to make the story become interesting, and where is it trying to go? And then you can take it through the main 3 plot points. So your first plot point, your mid kind of point of the book, and then your third one before you reach the darkest moment. I have some people call this the Dark Night of the Soul, or the Black Moment, or if you're following some kind of story structure, it's that moment where everything is just, it seems hopeless. And that's typically right before you reach the climax, so you include that in your synopsis next. What's that big event just before the ending that resolves, upsets, and makes a tornado out of everything? And then your resolution. That's it. That's the end. You don't need to go into the denouement. You don't need to talk about your ex-cousin twice removed that, I don't know, poisoned your cat when you were a kid, but that happened well before the story started, so no one cares about it anyway. Like, you don't need the the nitty-gritty, the superfluous details. You just need the basic bare bones. It's basically following the outline of the story. That's maybe a very quick way of saying everything I just said. Follow the outline.
If you're an outliner, the synopsis is probably
You'll probably
a breeze
shine.
for you.
Yeah,
but for the rest of us, people who can't outline to save their life, the synopsis is quite difficult because you have to do it after the fact. So if anyone remembers those fun book reports you had to do in grade school, that's kind of what you're doing for your synopsis.
Sure.
It's the closest comparison that I could come up with.
Yeah.
So I should go about, like, I write down the bare bones of what happens, kind of like how I'd write a work email. So super to the point, no flowery language, nothing like that. And then once I've got the bare bones, I can add if needed. So synopsis, they range anywhere from like 600 to 800 words, depending on the agent and sometimes the genre. Less is definitely more when it comes to a synopsis. The more you can trim it down, the better. And if you're still kind of stuck on how to make it work, just remember these things. You can do this in point form. So you want to hit your major beats. So what are your main characters? What are they after? What stops them from getting it? How does it end?
Nice. Write
that all out and then start to piece it together till it kind of flows. Check your word count. And if you're over the 600 to 800 words, start cutting the extra words, the lines, flowery language you might have snuck in there because we're writers and it happens.
It happens to the best of us.
And if you're still struggling, or if you've never written a synopsis before and you just want to practice, write a synopsis for like your favorite book, like the one that you know, like inside and out, like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Something that you just know so well. And write the whole thing and then look at it like, if someone asked you what happened in that book from beginning to end, but you only had a couple minutes to tell them about it, how would you break it down and tell them the main stuff?
Nice.
So those are my tips, basically.
Nice. I like it. I like it a lot. I think your tips are more helpful and more succinct than mine because you're looking at the notes too, right? So when I think about synopsis, I'm going to be really relatable for a second here, okay? You could be helpful and I'll be relatable. That's how this is going to go. So synopsis tips from Elise. Step 1, cry.
Never skip step 1.
Never skip step 1. You just always got to start that. You got to get it out because it's going to come. And if you don't want it to hit you when you don't want it to hit you. So just, settle down and
feel your feel.
And just like step into step 1 and just cry it out. Okay. It'll be healthy. It'll be good for you. Step 2, send Maria sobbing messages, begging for help.
Yeah.
Beg someone for help.
I will answer.
Yeah, send them all to Maria. Definitely not your own best friend who you send all your writing stuff to. Just Maria specifically because, she'll solve all your problems. That's why she's going to do the helpful
synopsis
tips.
Problems. I'm good at synopsis.
No, all of them. Did you know I signed you up to solve all of my problems? Not just the synopsis
good.
ones?
Yeah, okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I only have like 3 friends, so I got room. It's okay.
Excellent. I don't feel like I'm taking up too much time then. Step 1, cry. Step 2, send Maria all of your grief. Step 3, wait. Just take a breather. It'll help you, I promise. That's my helpful tip. There it is, okay? Step 3, take a breath. Step 4, cry some more. Step 5, repeat. See, I told you this. my synopsis tips are horrible because I hate writing these. Okay, I do find this one of the hardest parts of the whole writing get published thing for me personally. And querying is hard enough. Like, trying to sell yourself and market yourself. I mean, I say this, my job title at my day job is marketing assistant. Trying to market your own stuff.
It's different when it's yourself, though.
I know.
Like, it's much more difficult.
Man, it's hard. And synopses are so much worse. But okay, my 2 biggest real tips, because no, I'm not going to just leave you with a list of misery.
Not this time.
Not this time. Maybe next time. Book 2 of the Nymph Keepers, whatever.
Yeah.
But okay, with the synopsis, this is where I find it helpful to have an outline. Like Maria said, you're working with an outline of your story. You're just adding a little bit more nuance and context so that the agent can follow and read it and make sense of it. Ideally, I've put together an outline after I've written my completed draft, and I have that. I've gone back and made a note of all the relevant beats, and that's why it's also really crucial to keep the end goal of the story firmly in mind, because you need that to be in your synopsis too. And if it's not in there, and if there's no clear goal from beginning to end, that's going to come out when you try to write the synopsis, because that's kind of the whole point. And then some relevant and important plot points. How do they consistently point the reader towards that ending, towards that end goal? And similar to writing the first draft of your novel, with the synopsis, I find it helpful to have that ending in mind as I'm sitting down to be like, okay, I have to write my story now in 300 words or less. Because if I give myself a 500 word deadline, I'll go to 1,000. So I have to give myself 300 so that I stop at 800.
That's a good strategy.
And then beyond that, I really lean heavily on the workshopping side of things. I know Maria's really good at cutting words because she writes those skinny drafts. And this saves my life whenever I have to write a synopsis, because I maybe fibbed a little. I give myself that 300 word deadline and I still end up with 1,500 words, and then I send it to Maria and cry again.
And I just hack at it until it's right at the word count. I actually love to edit your synopsis.
Really?
I like it. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I got lots to work with. cut. It's fun.
I love it. Okay, perfect. But yeah, get a handful of people, ideally more than one person, because that's always going to help you more. Have them read your query and your synopsis. Pick some people who have read your book and some people who know nothing about your book, especially for the synopsis, to make sure it makes sense. Someone who's never read your book, that's going to be your agent. So, it's a decent comparison. And then get them to give you their feedback. And does your synopsis make them want to read the whole thing? Does it draw them in? Does it intrigue them? Does it not? And why? And that's going to be infinitely more helpful than hitting your head against the wall repeatedly.
Over and over again. Yeah. And if someone reads your synopsis, like someone who hasn't read your story, you've just given them the synopsis, if they're confused, like, this is a really easy place for you to be like offended. Like, what do you mean you're confused? It's so clear that this happens. Just like, they're confused because you made a mistake somewhere. You got to go back and fix it and make it so that the people reading it can understand like the main parts of the story that are there and make sense of it. So it is good. Yeah, definitely have people who have never read your story read your synopsis, and then have people that like workshopped your story read the synopsis, because I have sent my synopsis to Elise and she has been like, what about when this happened? And I'm like, oh yeah, no. I forgot about that. Thanks. Sentence. So yeah, that's why you got to get some eyes on it too. It's just like with your manuscript, like you get that workshop and ready to go. You should do the same for your query and your synopsis. It's
absolutely
very important.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked about what to do. We've given you all the tips that we have in our arsenal, but it does not end there. Oh no, because I think almost more important sometimes than the to-do tips, the list, the checklist, the things that you want absolutely to check off, almost more important than that are the things to not do. Because you can still check off all those boxes and then do a bunch of things that you shouldn't have done. So we're going to go over some of those, not to put the fear of God into your heart. This is not meant to like terrorize people. I just want a disclaimer. Yes, things can go wrong. No, it's not as bad as it sounds. Yes, it's hard. No, it's not hell on earth or misery. We just are writers, so we're a little dramatic. Just a little dramatic about things. Okay? It's a gift.
Tiny bit.
So, what not to do in the querying process as a whole. We're not going to break this down into the individual sections. I think we've covered that. But in general, I'll start. I'll keep mine as brief as I can. And then Maria will once again add some nuance to this conversation. Because I'm just going to give you straight up rules, okay? I like rules and lists of rules, right? They're easy to follow. It's like, yeah, I can do that. It's worded clearly and concisely, and I can follow them. So, for all you rule book people out there, do not spell an agent's name wrong. I mean, if anything, just don't do it for your own peace of mind. Because the one time I did, I was just mortified. It was awful. Yeah. I had a horrible day. It's like, I just realized it after I pressed send, too. It was like, oh, no. Oh, no. I hate it when people spell my name wrong.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Story of my life.
Okay. Yeah. So I know how it feels. And I know the agent's just like flooded with work and looking for reasons to say no, and like, oh, they spelled my name wrong. Nope. Yeah, that's what I would do because I'm petty. So, expect the worst. Don't spell their name wrong. Don't forget to put their name in the email. Like, it's really important to have that personal touch. It's like just yelling, hey, you, in a crowded square. We don't want to do that. Actually use their name. Spell it right,
Yeah.
And then maybe the bigger one is don't take things personally because they don't know you. You don't know them. They're flooded with work. You're desperate to get published. It's not personal. It's just business, literally. Like, that's not meant facetiously. You don't need to take rejections and assume that means your work is bad either. Because, like I said, I keep saying this, they're just looking for reasons to say no. And they have too many things to choose from most of the time. That's what it sounds like. So it's not personal. It's most likely not that your work is bad. It's most likely just, I don't know, not right for them. They're not in the mood for it that day. They just had a flood of the exact same genre come through their inbox and they found one they liked and now they want something else. They want a palate cleanser and yours is not that. And you know what? It probably happens to a lot of people. This is a lottery draw, remember? So
there's a human behind that screen that you're querying.
Exactly.
With likes and dislikes and things like that too.
And their likes and dislikes can change from day to day and we all have the right to do that. So don't take it personally. And then don't copy paste your query letter to 30 different agents at one time and send them all. Because then when you do like I do and notice that you spelled an agent's name wrong, you have a heart attack and keel over and die until tomorrow. Or you realize you put the same name in like 30 query letters and they're all wrong. Don't want to do that. Don't send out big batches.
That means you blew 30 chances.
Yeah. And that's
what happened.
That's a lot of work to, get back up to. Don't send them all at once. Like, be slow and methodical. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Publishing is not a sprint. You got to conserve your energy and you got to be careful. And if you want to get an agent's attention in the sea of options, you got to personalize each letter a little bit. So I can typically do about 5 queries in one sitting before I don't have any energy to do any more. That doesn't blow my whole day away or anything like that, but it's a certain kind of thinking and processing, and after 5, I'm done. I need to do something else and take a break. And maybe come back to it later in the day, but that's about as many as I can do because I'm hunting down, what do these people like? What do they read? Am I similar to that? Am I a good enough fit? And trying to personalize it each time. And then I guess this is a final one, and it's kind of subjective depending on your situation, but it's a general rule I have for myself that I don't edit my manuscript after getting a rejection. I don't do that. I don't touch it because, as I said, these are subjective personal opinions that may have absolutely nothing to do with my work and everything to do with the circumstances around my email. And that has nothing to do with the story. So do not take rejections to mean that there's something wrong with your work until you get some straightforward, tangible feedback from a couple of sources, which may never happen. Because a lot of agents don't give feedback because they're too busy. They're too busy. And you won't hear what they actually think about your book until you get accepted. Or if you're at this point in the querying process, then you might want to take a look at editing again. If you've queried at least like 80 to 100 agents with no requests for more info, for a partial read, for a full read, with no steps forward. If you've just gotten a bunch of rejections and been ghosted and you've done like 80 to 100 queries, okay, then you can consider editing, rewriting, or trying something else. But until that point, I really don't recommend editing too much because it's too easy, especially I should couch that. I recommend not editing right after getting rejections because it's way too easy to be emotional about it and think, oh, my work is terrible and I have to change everything because it all sucks. And that's just not true.
Yeah, you could cut some really good stuff in that kind of mental place. You should definitely, like we always, I feel like some of our main advice is to take some time away from it and then, come back to it when you're in the right frame of mind. It's going to make a big difference. Yeah. And so my little list of don'ts, I agree with all of the Lisa's, of course. Don't ignore the agent's requests. So if they specifically don't read your genre or don't read stories like yours, don't query them. Your book could be amazing, but not for that agent. And don't be discouraged. Like Lisa said, rejections are tough to deal with. But when you think about it, so many of those best-selling authors were rejected multiple times before they signed with anybody. So think about that as well, right? It's not all smooth sailing. Don't ignore the guidelines for queries. So if they ask the first 5 pages, only send the first 5 pages. If you say this sentence I'm about to say, if you say, but the story doesn't get going until page 10, have I got news for you, my friend. You need to start your story on page 10 or page 9, okay?
Yeah, that calls for
never.
revision.
Don't do that. People will do that. They'll be like, I sent you 10 pages because it doesn't get good until this point. Well, then why, if you know it doesn't get good till that point, why are you sending me the other 9 pages of crap? So think about that really hard before you do that. And fix it before you start querying.
Yep.
So I found agents where I've been like, they are the perfect agent for me. Like they even love dogs. Okay. It's like dating websites. Yeah. Like, they sound great. But they don't like portal stories. And I wrote a portal story. Do I still query them? No. Doesn't matter if I think we're frickin' soulmates. But if my story is not on their wish list or something that they will have a list of things that they will not accept.
Yeah.
And if what you wrote is in that list, do not query them. And the sad thing is, out of those 50 to 200 queries they get a day, willing to bet a good percentage of those people didn't read the requirements. So don't be one of those people. And if an agent is closed for queries, they are closed for queries. Even if your book is the perfect fit, that's just too damn bad. You have to wait till they open for queries again, and then you can query them. This happened to me with my last one. And I swear if I had been able to query her, she would have really liked it. But she was not open for queries, and I did not overstep the boundary and send it to her anyway. So when you're reading agent guidelines and things like that, you're reading for understanding. What they're telling you is not a suggestion.
Yeah.
That is their rules. Don't break them. You don't want to give yourself a bad name in this industry before you even get started.
There it is. I was just going to add a plug for, like, you are posturing yourself for the future in this situation. And if you find an agent that seems like a really good fit for something you're working on, but they're closed for queries, you send them one anyway. They delete it, but they remember your name. It could happen.
Yeah, especially if you have a unique name like me. They'll remember you.
Right? And then you write something else and you try to query them again. And they remember your name. Chances are they're not going to read that one either. So don't set yourself up to fail by ignoring the rules because it's a lottery.
On the other side of it, if you query an agent and they reject you, but you followed all their rules, you laid out everything just like you were supposed to, and then a year later you query them with a different project and they remember you, they're gonna be like, oh, I remember reading that and I didn't ultimately choose it, but they'll give your work a little more consideration because they've already heard from you and they remember you.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of impression you want to leave. This is not the time to be a rebel.
No.
Just sadly, it's true.
Yeah. You want to stick out, but you don't want to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yes. And that's okay. That's a whole lot of rules and regulations, and it can get pretty dreary and pretty discouraging. But I don't know. This is the one thing that we always say to kind of pick ourselves up dust ourselves off and keep going. Celebrate. This kind of takes us to the end of this whole thing. We've given you our tips, but our biggest one, I think our last one, is to celebrate. Celebrate every single step of this journey. Every query that you send is a milestone. You have taken a step further than so many people do, and you've written a book and you've finished it, first of all, and then you've done the research and you've gotten to this point where you're actually trying to physically publish it with a publisher. And how many people are too afraid to do that? Probably a lot. Yeah. So every query that you send is worth celebration. Every rejection that you receive, this is how I handle rejections. Every rejection you receive is a milestone. It is worth celebration. It is worth saying, I sent that letter out there and it got noticed and someone took it and replied to it, even if it's just a generic, standard reply. It got a reply. It got attention. I took that step. I didn't just tuck my finished manuscript away in a drawer and pretend it didn't exist. I actually sent it out. I took that extra step. And that's worth celebration. And I think especially the rejections, every single one, is proof that you've taken this dream a step further than many ever do. And so many people just never finish. I can't get over this. So many people never finish writing a draft. They never finish that book. How many drafts do I have that are unfinished? And people stop there. And I mean, if they even start the story in the first place, because some people have this idea and they're like, oh, I've always wanted to write a book, but they never write the book. So the mere fact that people are querying and they've written a book is massive. And that's worthy of celebration. Pop a bottle of champagne after every rejection, if that's what you got to do to keep going, because you got to keep going. You got to keep
slow
going.
descent into alcoholism.
Just disclaimer. We have a lot of disclaimers here. I don't support that lifestyle.
Don't query during sober October, okay? You will regret it. So my parting advice, I suppose, is don't overload yourself. So like Elise touched on earlier, she gets to about 5 queries before she's done for the day. And I'm about the same. There's some days where I'm really on it and maybe I'll get 8. And there's some days where I send 1 and I'm like, man, that was exhausting. So, space out your queries, take your time, and I know stay positive, but really do try and stay positive, because you're really chasing a dream. Most of us don't write because it's going to make us a lot of money, right? We write because we have stories to tell and things we want to share. And so just remember that that's more important. It sounds like a silly, saying you'd put on your wall, motivational poster, but it's true. And I like to tell myself that even though I was rejected, someone actually read this work and considered it before they rejected it. And maybe they liked it a lot, but it didn't work for them, right? So I'll lie and tell myself that they all loved it and they just couldn't fit it on their list. It doesn't matter. Whatever gets you through the
brain tricks,
the whole experience. Yeah. And that's a good feeling, And that's the tea on where to start if you want to get published the traditional way. All links will be in the show notes, and you can reach us anytime at theteagrannies@gmail.com or follow us at the Tea Grannies Podcast on Instagram. Please rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts. It's time to put the kettle on. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Happy writing.